Hi, it's Delia. Thank you for clicking on. And just let me introduce myself a little bit for those who might not know me. I'm natural born and trained. Um, I wrote it down because I always forget. Yeah, psychic medium and trans channeler. I've been talking to entities without bodies for as long as I can remember. I've been reading energy for as long as I can remember. Um, I had a lot of, I came in with a lot of innate capacity that was very well developed already. And then inspired by a lot of various kinds of trauma and pain in my childhood, I was inspired to seek out more and better information. And I did. So I did a lot of, I followed the energy because that's what my system is calibrated to do, follow the energy, which I think a lot of people's systems are calibrated for that. And I learned a lot about energy and how energy moves. I started out trained in Catholicism. Luckily, it was my mother was Irish Catholic and Irish American born Catholic. Her mother was from Ireland. So she had a lot, and she was also an identical twin. So she had a lot of psychic capacities herself, which she both, the Irish in her was kind of wanted to lean into that, but it's scary. And the good Catholic didn't want to go there. And the times, the times that she was from. So her push-pull relationship with knowing and sensing energy, it actually made it more possible for me to have mine because she wasn't outright rejecting it. And she knew I was different. And she made a point of not accentuating that. She kind of ignored it, which for a long time felt like I was being invalidated. But it turns out it was the right choice. I did study. I was never really good at school because I didn't want to be a cog in the machine, but I was very good at studying and curious about how things work and how things relate. And I found off the beaten path schools, energy schools, and ancient Egyptian schools, mystery school kind of information. Never a big name brand person or modality. But I just followed the energy for what was true and right for me. And it's always worked. And I did go to I'd had a very intensive experience at an energy school, a psychic training facility for a number of years. So I've had really great training and I had a lot of, practice hours with doing readings and healings. So I've spent a lot of time developing and clarifying what I was reading. When you're reading energy, you're connecting with your higher self, which is an infinite consciousness. It's home. It's where you came from. It's where you're going to go back to when this body is finished with this physical lifetime. And from there, from that home space, consciousness, you're part of everything and everybody. It's impossible, it's unfathomable for a human body, a human brain kind of to understand it. But you are you, and you are one with everything and everybody. And we don't know how to do that in the physical world, so it doesn't make any sense to the physical brain. But energetically, maybe you can sense it is true. So saying I'm a trans medium, saying that I'm psychic is like saying I'm human to me. So the other thing that I was developing all those years, especially with my family of origin, we were very active in the civil rights fight, the fight for civil rights. And I worked in my first political campaign when I was 6, stuffing envelopes for mailers that went out, because it was those days. And so social consciousness and social awareness and what are you doing for the community was a big value in my family. And both my parents were devout Catholics, which didn't used to be a bad word. And their path in their religion, the way they interpreted and the way they participated in Catholicism was similar to a movement by Dorothy Day in the Catholic Church, which is works without faith is nothing. Faith without works is nothing. Sorry. Faith without works is nothing. So what are you doing to live your vision of reality? What are you doing to live your faith? What are you doing for the community as part of your being here? So the spiritual and the political have always been, in my lifetime, in my experience of life, very together. And the public and the private are very together. So what is happening for you in your very private, inside your mind, your healing, your experiences, your pain, and what you're doing about all that, how you're interpreting all that, is very much a part of what's going on in the big world and in the political world. So what's going on for you personally, sorry, and what's going on in the society are related, and they reflect each other, so that you can have more clarity about what your path is and what you should be doing, what you should be working on. And your spiritual growth and the spiritual growth of humanity are linked. They're not separate. And as you have more clarity or more peace or more ease or a bigger perspective, so what used to be hurtful, now you comprehend as how it helped you grow. This is very important to the collective consciousness. And the more people are individually, privately waking up and healing and raising their vibration and feeling better, the more people are capable of contributing. There's certain kinds of dealing with trauma that really makes participating in the larger community challenging. And that's a completely legitimate place to be. And you'll, as you continue to follow your path of healing, you'll find ways to heal and feel better. And that'll connect you more with the community. Now, you can be connected with the community even if you don't have a lot of physical friends, friends in physical form. You can heal and cultivate your connection with your higher self. And you can have friends that are, nature spirits, and weather and earth changes. There's a lot of forms of friendship and sibling relationships. Not all siblings are human. The bigger your consciousness is about what it is to be here on the planet, the more you understand that all the other entities that are here on the planet, and every molecule has consciousness. So there's a lot. You can have a rich relationship with. So thinking outside the box is pretty much mandatory for thriving. The box, by definition, is meant to cut you off, right? So sometimes people say, well, what's the spiritual perspective of this thing that happened to me, or that thing that happened to me? And there's like this big chasm between what's going on for me personally and what's happening in the air quote real world. And the truth is, the chasm is not real. The connection with what's happening with you personally and what's happening in the big world, that's very real. So right now we have we have a tremendous amount of growth happening, and there's a lot of pain, and there's a lot of collapse. And because of our cultural definitions and assumptions, some people assume that the collapse must be a bad thing. Other people are aware that the destruction is the step before creation. They're aligned, they're connected. You can't have one without the other. And just today, I was hearing a psychic talking about the world after what's happening. I think they were talking about the presidency in particular, after what's happening right now. And it's a well-meaning person who is reading energy, which is great, but their lack of knowledge of how civics works, the structure of the three branches of government and the White House itself and the presidency, the powers of the president. She was speaking as though how things are happening in 45 and now are somehow related to how presidential powers work. And they're not. The things that are going on have nothing to do with how the office of the presidency actually works. And they have nothing to do with the powers of the presidency. And the Supreme Court itself has been erasing the structure of the three branches. They've been rejiggering and bastardizing the powers of the office. So to have an idea of what the office, how things are going to run on the other side is if, let's say, on the other side of this, the Supreme Court rulings that have eroded democracy were reversed. And the perversions of the powers of the presidency were reversed. And we simply went back to how it was designed. That would be okay. If, and this is a big if, if the most important office of a democracy started to function properly and participate. And the most important office of a democracy is the voter. And through my lifetime, the office of the voter has been disincentivized by the left and the right. Your vote doesn't matter. Drop out. I can't remember now, but in the 60s, there was something about dropping out and not participating. I'm not going to participate in the charade. So we're at a convergence of 50 or 60 years of both sides, liberals and conservatives, not participating in what you get when the office of the voter doesn't participate, is you get what we're trying to clean up now. This is the collapse. So, and the office of the voter is more than one day periodically voting. It's doing the things that you have been doing in the past year, in the past 9 months, calling the elected officials, sending postcards, using your voice, participating. I mean, it's like, if you don't participate in a relationship, the relationship dies. If you don't participate in how a family operates, the family will get really weird and dysfunctional. So everybody has to use their voice. Everybody has to be in their power for this whole living thing to work. And democracy at its best, we've never seen, because democracy at its best means everybody shows up. And if everybody is showing up all the time, and this is true for how you operate in your life, if you're showing up in your life every day and not zoning out and not getting too hectic to think and not getting overtired, if you're operating at good levels of self-care, you've got enough air to breathe, you've got enough water to drink, you've got enough food in your system, you've got enough sleep, you're getting enough exercise, you're getting enough social time, you're having enough time to be productive at something you love, aka work, and you have plenty of time with your friends and cultivating your human side, right? And you're showing up every day in your life because your life is someplace you want to be, not someplace you need a vacation from, right? Then you're going to be speaking up. You're going to be saying, that's okay, but that's not okay, or let's do this, or let's do that. You're going to be naturally participating because you're present and you're aware of what's going on and you want to take part in what's going on. And you want others to take part so that the weight is not all on you. So you're showing up in your life, you're participating in your life, you're not participating in other people's power games of how things are supposed to run. You're not feeling inadequate, and so you're making yourself work 60 hours a week. You're showing up fully fed and watered and slept, robust, loving your life. Now, if you bring that to your work and to your relationships, then it's naturally going to be very generative. And if you're being that and your friends are being that, that's going to naturally spill into and flood and flush into society. And then 90% of the heinous things that are going on and the decline, it has to stop because nobody's participating in it. So Buckminster Fuller said something I'll get it wrong, but something about you can't fix a problem from the same playbook. You have to create something new. You have to invest in some other way of doing things. And right now, there's a lot of people who are equipped and showing up beautifully to facilitate the destruction of the forces of destruction, to get our nation and the way we operate back into some kind of sanity. So there are lawyers, there are people who are elected officials, judges, newspaper people, people who are reporters without an affiliation. There are millions of people who are doing every day important work towards being involved in what we're involved in for the benefit of the many, and changing the structure that's for the benefit of the few. And that's wonderful. I'm so grateful, because not all of us are equipped to do that. Some of us are equipped to do other things. And we've been led to believe that if we do these other things that are smaller and quieter and have no microphone and no video, that they're less valuable. And they are not. We're in a transformation of human consciousness, and what each and every one of us decides in the quiet of our own space, what we decide about the kind of world we want to live in, literally matters. It makes a difference. It brings something into reality. And the more each one of us, in the quiet of our own mind, are spending time cultivating ideas, visions, fantasies even, about the kind of world you want to live in. You're adding that to this tumultuous time. You're like adding your vote cosmically towards the kind of world you want to live in. And because you're deeply connected to it, it matters to you, you care about that vision. Now you have like a guiding star for how you're showing up in your own life, how you're showing up to the lady at the checkout counter, how you're showing up on the road when people behave so badly. You're the one who lets somebody in on the, merging on the freeway. There's a million ways that we create the kind of world we want to live in. And it's all an inside job. It all starts from within. And how you're treating yourself. So, are you thinking mean thoughts about you and calling them practical or responsible? This is really common. And judging yourself, especially for the empaths and the psychics out there. So often in childhood, we learned that you get in trouble if you get angry, or if you get too loud, or if you get too big for your britches, or if you feel too good, if you're, lots of things. So a lot of that control, I call it control with a K because it has to do with domination. Um, we grew up with that, and we can't we can't express it out. We can't say, we can't treat them like they have treated us, right? So instead, we internalize that kind of control. And the less you behave that way with yourself, the less this reality can tolerate that domination kind of control. So how you're thinking about you, how you're correcting you, how much compassion do you have when you, air quote, make a mistake? How much can you be on your side in those times when traditionally you get on your case? Just being aware that there's a choice starts to shift things. And then making a different choice when you're in that moment changes the trajectory of your life. So what's happening outside of us, out in the big world, and what's happening internally, they're not really separate. I mean, in a very real and pragmatic ways, they're not separate. The more you want peace or joy or thriving for the many, the more you want social justice, the more you want any of those things out in the big world, you're finding new ways of practicing those ideals of yours inside, how you operate in your head. That is a great contribution to how things happen out in the world. There is a resonance field. And it's one of the reasons that for the past 20 odd years, we've seen more entertainment. It's called entertainment, but it's been desensitizing everybody to seeing war tactics, torture, torture tactics in relationships, mind fucky things, dead bodies, autopsies, criminals, criminality, the glorification of criminality and the glorification of crimes as entertainment. And these are blockbusters. And now there's all these comic book characters. And they're they, interestingly enough, they just carry out they propagate the idea that you are nothing, but if you have superpowers, then that would be something. What if you turn that on its ear? What if you are something? And what if you don't let anybody else's definition of you fool you? And this is based on the premise that you're a good person. And like everybody else, you just have a lot of inaccurate misinformation that now you're ready to slough off. You're ready to see it, choose out of it, heal yourself, do your shadow work, and grow. And stop pushing away your own power, which is what so many want us to do. Democracy we've never really seen it work, partly because we've had this ancient wound of slavery that's been disowned and hasn't been properly flushed out until now. And this is the wake-up call for all of us to clean house and show up in our own lives and in our community. We are social beings. We're supposed to need each other. And we do. And we can create magnificent things. If you're old enough to remember the magnificent future that Disney promised us, and when the government was well funded in the late 50s and the 60s, and America itself was building the infrastructure that Reagan decided to not maintain anymore, there was tremendous optimism because everybody just had that belief that we could do anything. No, it wasn't perfect. Sure, people were left out, but we don't have to leave them out anymore. The biggest danger of you believing that with your higher self, with alignment with your true nature, you can do anything. The worst that could happen is that you could. Your belief dictates what you see as possible, what you hear is possible. So I hope I've illuminated a little bit about how the internal world and the external world are intrinsically related. And your healing contributes to the healing of everyone. And it makes more healing available to everyone. So, contrary to the feeling, you're not just healing because something's wrong and bad with you, and then you're going to be less bad and wrong. You're healing because everybody in humanity, the structure that we've had for the past few thousand years, is oppressive. And one of its tools of oppression is to make everybody think that they have a personal problem with the system, when in fact it's the system of domination instead of cooperation. So keep showing up in your life. Keep expanding your capacity and your tolerance for being present. And keep looking for what can you do. Participating in how things are going is very healing. So I hope this helps, and I'd love to hear what you have to say in the comments. So I'll see you next time. Thanks for being here.